And welcome everybody to another episode of the Most Important Conversations. I am joined by my co-host, September. As always, September, how are you doing today?
I'm great today, Chad. How are you?
I'm wonderful. And our guest today is the beautiful and wonderful and extremely talented Angie Lile. Angie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. I'm so
Oh, well,
excited to have this conversation.
yeah, well, us too, because that's our thing, the most important conversations, and it's how the world socially creates itself. And I've been really excited to talk to you because we live in what I would consider um, really dramatic, unparalleled times, a time in human history where we are seeing the impact of technology literally affecting every single aspect of life. Throughout human history, technology has always been important to how humans have lived. If you go back to fire, or the hammer, or the wheel, or gunpowder, right? These are all technologies that fundamentally transformed the trajectory of humanity, but they seem to exist a bit in sort of like a silo or a bubble. Like there was one major technology and we did that for a long time. And what we're seeing right now is technology is kind of bursting at the seams all over the place. And this is something that I know you've been really on top of in terms of your area of interest and where you've actually worked and where you've had your career base for a number of years. So let's start with the obvious one with you. Your background in social media and that technology and the impact. And let's deal with the elephant in the room for starters. Okay, the elephant in the room. Social media is kind of getting a bad rap these days in a lot of circles. I remember so I had a Facebook account in 2007 when it first came out. I think it was like around 2007. Was it about then? That's when I had an
No,
account.
a little bit earlier than that, but yeah.
A little bit earlier. So I was pretty
Yeah.
early adopter. I even had a MySpace account. Didn't do very much with it,
hmm
but I had a Facebook account. And then in 2013, I got all rebellious and was like, I think that all of this is just a massive addiction machine. And I was like, every time someone gets a like, they're just getting an oxytocin hit to the brain. And I don't know if I want to be part of this game. So I canceled my social media account. I actually deleted it, my Facebook account, I should say. And I had like thousands of friends. I'd maxed out the friend thing. And then in 2015, I decided, maybe I'll go back on and maybe I'll use it for a more intentional purpose as opposed to just friend collecting, which was kind of the thing back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, fast forward to today. Here we are, and we've seen the impact for better or worse, and the sort of trend at the moment feels like, with the social dilemma and all of this stuff that's been coming out over the last few years, which incidentally, when I watched it, I think I was like cluing in on this 10 years earlier, but okay, whatever. So now here we are. Now, you've been involved in social media since the very, very, very beginning. You've worked with some very high profile people, continue to at the moment. And so you're kind of a trusted, literally an expert source. And I say that very reservedly because I think expert is thrown around today, like a cheap rag, but you actually fulfill that qualification. You've been in it since the very beginning. You've been doing it since the very beginning, and you've seen everything. Okay, there's my preamble. So let's start with the elephant in the room, social media. It's like the old, song from the 70s, War, what is it good for, right? Social media, what
Right.
is it good for? Tell me about it. Talk to me about what's going on right now.
Yeah. I fell in love with social media because of its power to convey messages. And as a communicator at heart, I think that was its ultimate lure, if you will, for me. I remember starting my MySpace account, and I remember seeing other people posting and getting friend requests. And for me, it was like, I need an avatar to protect my identity. I don't want to use my real name. I'm going to be super, super incognito, because that's how I learned to use the internet. I mean, I was using the bulletin board system when it was still just text based, computer programming, and you could literally tell anyone anything about yourself and they don't know it's true or not true. And so in college, that was the thing, is to create your fictional character. And so there's still a lot of people that use social media like that. And then there's other people that get on there and they're just like, they share everything. They share everything in real life. They're sharing their food, their pets, their walks, their everything, and at first it's like, you do think, they're just trying to get attention, but also it became kind of like a journaling experience for a lot of people, almost in a case where you could go back and see your memories. I know you get memories on Facebook now, and that's a trend. Like now,
Yeah.
Google shares your memories from wherever. I get memories off of my Microsoft message board. I mean, it's like they know that you like to go back in time and recapitulate what it is that you were sharing on social media. So it has its usage and its desires have kind of morphed over time. And I think people are starting to be a little bit more authentic. But then there was like this whole era of like the 2016 election when everything went really south for Facebook, especially, but all the social media accounts where there was prolific fake news, real fake news. I mean, it was like these websites that looked like ABC News, but they were just a little bit different,
Yeah.
And so that really shook people up, and made them not believe you, even if you're being authentic. So now it's like almost a polarization of sorts.
Yeah.
So, and for me, like if I was a sociologist, I'd be extremely interested in how this has all played out over the years, because I personally have been interested in how people use it over the years. And, for my clients, it's really about communication. And that's really what I've always wanted to use it for. But I was one of the many that were tricked into believing certain news things were real in 2016, because it was everywhere. All my friends are sharing it, and and so it really made me step back and realize that even though I have a high level look at all these social media sites and how people are using them, how the news trickles across different platforms, it's fascinating. And I still didn't see that this was, really good fake news. So, and I think that with AI now, we're really going to have to be very discerning. And the fate of social media, used to be that they thought Facebook would be the next internet. Like it would just be the internet. It would just be Facebook.
Right.
And I don't see that anymore. I don't think that it's going to be the end of all of our conversations here on social media. I think new technologies will emerge that will take its place.
Yeah.
And already seeing that in virtual, when I'm looking at people playing around in virtual, who these people are. A lot of them are kids, but there's a lot of adults there too. People who are trying to figure out how to use it for their business or for, whatever purpose, because that's how they started with Facebook. Hey, I wonder if I can market my business on Facebook. By golly, I can, and it was just fascinating, because I came from an industry, a video production industry, actually, where people had to pay a lot of money to get a 30-second commercial on TV. So much money. And a small business owner, that's a huge investment. They're taking a big gamble, and then, they're trusting whether or not this is going to be the message that's going to get that return. And it was a big risk for small business owners. And so I saw that making smaller videos on social media and marketing them that way would work just as well, because there were all these people that were jumping on social media and starting to watch these videos. So that's how I got started. It didn't exist when I wanted to start a video production company, but now it exists, and we focus all of our digital media on these new mediums that are coming out. So, Facebook and Instagram and everybody, TikTok now. So we'll continue to look at how to make content to communicate those messages on whatever platform they are on.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things here that you bring to mind here. Um, First of all, I think that the objective of free speech is really something that most people, I think, would agree with, at least in the West, anyway, at least in, liberal societies, liberal democracies, that kind of thing, where we value, the sharing of ideas, or, John Stuart Mill's idea of the marketplace of ideas. And social media really presented an opportunity for us to really have a true marketplace of ideas. But there's an interesting thing here. So there's freedom of speech, but then there's also responsible speech. And the challenge that we've run into here is that social media has amplified the ability for everyone to have a platform now. If they want it, they can have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's going to be have a lot of people following their platform, depending on what they're putting out there, but that's on them, right? To control the message,
Right.
and to put something out there that's okay. So on the face of it, that's great. And we've heard from like Tristan Harris and his social dilemma work, and what they do at, Humane Technology. And, that the problem is the way the algorithms work and the way the monetization model works, where, it's all about attention. It's the attention economy and the ability to keep people's attention. Well, it's no different than a slot machine from that perspective. I mean, I want to keep you
Right.
pulling the thing, right? I want to
Mhm.
keep you posting. I want to keep you engaged. I want to keep you scrolling. And so you were saying, like, with AI now, that we're going to have to be a lot more discerning. The thing that worries me is we weren't discerning with the last thing. you know so it's
We
like,
weren't.
and now, in full disclosure, you're part of what we're doing here at TMIC, and growing, the mission and the vision and the brand and everything that we're doing. And that's really near and dear to the heart of what we're up to here, is wanting to actually elevate the conversations that we're having, and elevate the level of self-awareness that people are bringing to those conversations, because it's in conversation that reality is created. Social media as a platform is a platform for conversation, and reality gets created. There are many realities that have been created since 2016 that haven't been that great. So people are worried about AI. People are worried, like, oh, have we just dumped rocket fuel into this thing that we haven't even got our arms around yet? September, I'm interested from your perspective, just as a sidebar here. You're someone who's self-disclosed, said, I'm not really into tech that much. It's not really my lane. I mean, but you have a Facebook account and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, who doesn't, right? I guess we all kind of jumped in.
Yeah.
My mom does. People have it. She doesn't use it except to go shopping, and, the marketplace and things like that. That's what
Pretty
some
much.
people use it for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're someone, though, that also is really kind of concerned with authenticity, with integrity, with on one of our other podcasts, honesty, these sorts of values. What's been your observation with social media? And then I want to go back to Angie and say, what do we do about all this?
Well, I can give you just my firsthand experience of social media. I felt within myself early on that I didn't like the way that it felt to have all these likes and comments and stuff. For me, it didn't feel good. I felt like it just felt almost like
Cringy.
an unauthentic validation, inauthentic validation.
Well, is it true, Angie, just to interject one question, that when Zuckerberg came up with the concept for Facebook, it was to rate hot girls in college? I had heard that somewhere. Is that true?
It's entirely possible. I wouldn't put it past him. This
Yeah.
was college born thing, and it was supposed to be in between students. Like, you had to prove that you were a student
Right.
to even have an account. So yeah,
So
it's
there,
possible.
that explains September's kind of cringy feeling about the
It
like
could
button.
be,
Yeah, it didn't feel
and
good.
yeah.
Yeah, but and then I stepped away from it, and then there for a little while I tried to be more involved because I know how important it is for a business. And I really tried. Oh, Angie, I tried so hard to like it. I really did. but I'm just not into this whole, how many views did I get and how many likes did I get? It's like, I don't need that for me. I'm good. So I really struggle with it. Then TikTok came out. Okay. I love me some TikTok, and I love the algorithms about TikTok, because if you show an interest in a particular topic, it feeds you more perspective on that topic. And I love that part. So I really have set up my algorithm on TikTok to only provide information that I'm interested in. Sometimes you get the silly stuff, but that you just scroll quickly past and the algorithm learns from you. I'm comfortable doing that because I know myself. I'm comfortable in my skin. I know who I am. I know what I value in life, and I'm comfortable doing that. However, I also have a 13-year-old girl in my life as well. And I can see how influential social media can be and how easy it is for middle school. She's in middle school. She's my bonus daughter. And it can be brutal if you're not taught about boundaries, but we have that conversation. Where are your boundaries? What's okay? What's not okay? How do you handle things that are not, we're having that conversation, but there's too many households that are not having that conversation. And these poor young girls and young boys are feeling as if there's this bar set for them, that they need to look a certain way. They need to carry themselves a certain way. They can, there's nothing about it that unless they intentionally know to go to look for authentic type of content that's going to feed them in good ways, unless they know to do that, they're just being hit with all this garbage that is just so inappropriate for that development age for the brain, let alone the personality of an 11-year-old, but the brain itself, because it's still developing. And so what is the information that's being programmed into that brain? And if, as a parent, if you're not being intentional about that and what your child's seeing, I feel like we have no idea what the ripple effect of that is going to be. How are these middle schools going to be when they're our age, in the middle of our life?
We really don't.
We have no idea.
You're right. And it's one of the reasons why I got so involved in my kids' public school, is because I wanted to start having those conversations with parents. And also because when TikTok was Musically, which was the app that it was called before, my kids got it. They put it on my phone and they would use it whenever I would let them borrow my phone just to play around. They would sing. It was a lip syncing app, and I didn't realize that it was actually connected to a whole community of strangers who could like your videos if your account wasn't, so it's like, that was kind of a wake up moment for me too, that apps on your phone even have this component to it that you might not be aware of as a parent. And so I got really involved with schools. And it's one of the reasons why I do what I do as far as advocacy in the schools, because it's true that, so many of the young parents, especially really young parents who still don't know the repercussions of their own social media addictions, are letting their kids get on there and use it. And so, it's really up to the parents to initially make those choices for the kids. And that's why we have to talk to parents. We have to have those conversations, and many of them all the time, and even in your parent groups, like, what apps do you let your kids use? I'm just curious, and just see what kind of conversations happen from that. Or talk to the school and say, what kind of programming could you put together to teach parents about the dangers of certain apps? And I know schools would be on board with that, because we became the subject of a TikTok trend where kids were taking toilets out of the school bathroom. So we actually
What was that called again? My daughter was telling me about that.
I don't know, but it was a trend,
It was.
So that's the thing with TikTok, is it's really easy to, the trends go so fast. You don't really pick up that it's a part of the trend until you're hearing about it on the news, that the kids have gone crazy again, and it's all TikTok's fault.
Yeah. Weird things. And my thought on the whole thing is, it's a real catch-22. I have two daughters, and on the one hand, okay, so let's say the schools put a program together to try to inform and educate parents on, the dangers of certain platforms and what to be aware of and stuff like that. Well, most parents are going to just want to say, well, you're not on that anymore. That's enough of that. But we've created the scenario where it's the way that this generation communicates and the way that they engage. And if you take that away, then what you've actually put them in is a social bubble where they're not part of what's going on in society. And that has its own ramifications, So it's a real catch-22 that this goes to what we talk about inside of TMIC all the time, which is intention, right? Have a really clear intention for what it is that you want to create, why you want to create it, and where are you coming from in the creation of it. That did not exist with social media. I mean, it was sort of we can do it because we can. And oh, by the way, we can probably make some money doing this. And whether it has, I don't believe technology is ever all good or all bad. It's what you do with it, right? And we saw that with, the Oppenheimer film, which was, yes, biographical, but also allegorical, to suggest that, hey, AI is kind of like this over here, right? What are we going to do with it? So Angie, you're obviously, someone who lives and breathes technology because I'm assuming you obviously see the positives or the benefits of it. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be in that industry, just knowing the person that you are, and you think it can deliver some good to the world. We've been talking a lot about social media. We don't have to stay there. Let's also introduce virtual reality. Let's introduce artificial intelligence. I mean, knowing that human beings struggle to bring intention to things and have a level of emotional sobriety and self-awareness, how do we walk this fine line with these technologies that aren't inherently good or bad? It's all how we use it, when we've already seen with the experiment with social media that I would say it's largely failed in terms of us using it well.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I have a broadcast background. I actually learned how to do broadcast radio, broadcast television, and one of the things they teach you is all about the FTC, right? This is the governing body that is supposed to protect the public from false sales information, specifically to take advantage of them financially. And we're starting to see now the FTC kind of moving into the social media space. I've been reading about this more and more, and also that they want to start really paying attention to the brand influencer partnership type modality. So, the more this happens and the more that virtual reality and AI and everything will start to evolve, I still see this shift moving by the public who want free speech. And I put that in quotes because free speech doesn't necessarily mean you're allowed to trick people into doing something that they wouldn't
responsible
normally do,
speech,
right? Yeah. Exactly. So that is the big difference in what that organization was so good at highlighting is the way the computer algorithm was built was to keep people online. And it still is to an extent, because I just went through a whole training session with a very high level marketing firm. They're the cutting edge of social media. And their whole thing is you have to build the video in the app. You have to stay in the app and build the video, put the music, put the filters, put the text on there. And I'm like, of course they want me to build it in the app. I'm on their platform. I'm using their platform. That I'm counting towards the big number, and that video that I spent all this time building on the app is actually getting more reach and engagement. So they're basically, giving me the hit of having better results by doing that. So it's still going on, AI. When we talk about AI, now we've got it's like I like to look at it like Windows, it's another program that's very, very smart, intelligent program. And you can put it on your computer and you can tell it to actually make another program that will run on your computer. I mean, it's smart enough to create something more of itself on your computer. And so there's just so many different nuances and how that will be integrated because, for example, if you go onto your phone right now and you look for AI generating photo apps. You're going to find hundreds and
Yeah.
thousands of these apps that have been built on this, generative AI,
Yeah.
but it's all still based on that one core programming.
Right.
And so that is where we have to, focus our efforts as far as making sure that, for one thing, we're using AI to discern what's real and not real out there in the world. I think that we have this capability. If we have the ability to use AI to make fake videos, then we have the ability to have AI identify when that
Mm,
video is
mm,
fake. And so I think we're going to see this counter movement of like Norton antivirus for
yeah.
AI,
Interesting.
that's where I feel like it would go, because that's the only way that you could really, keep that in check, as far as making sure that, people weren't using that tool to make more fake things, fake ways to get you to click on the link to fish. The phishing scams have evolved over time, and they will start using AI. And soon we should see, hopefully, some people coming out with their own version of, like antivirus for AI stuff.
Yeah.
That would be my wish, as far as that, because it really would. I mean, unless you had something on there that was constantly filtering out the fake stuff, you're going to fall for something eventually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't care how smart you are, you're going to fall for it eventually. And, it's happened to so many people that I even know. And then with virtual reality now, and augmented reality, right? I
Mm,
think that is going to even be more popular than virtual,
yeah.
simply because people can still see their environment and
Yeah.
interact with the fake things that are now being generated into their environment. And then it's also kind of opening the door for advertisements. Like, this is the future of billboards, AR.
Yeah.
You put a billboard up, and if you're wearing your AR goggles, you'll see it,
Yeah.
but it's not cluttering up the environment. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that would be really awesome. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
switch off my billboard filter.
We've come a
You
long
know?
way from Pokemon Go, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the
We
whole,
were just driving around the other day looking at we saw a bunch of people on their phones, and I was like, I wonder if they're using AR on their phones. And the kids were like, well, we know they're not playing Pokemon Go, right?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so, I mean, I think I'm going to watch this weekend. I think I'm going to watch the Star Wars series again, because I think it's like, I mean, we're, not just for the high tech, but also the whole conversation around the
Hmm.
dark side
Hmm.
and the light and the good side, and the
Yeah.
spiritual, the crashing of the spiritual world in with the technological world, and that mashup. We're starting to see that right now. I mean, we're having existential questions and conversations around about the singularity. So September, that what the singularity is, as my non-techie co-host, right. I mean, it's like when the intelligence of AI and these systems basically overtake humanity in terms of their intelligence and their ability to
Outsmart us,
recreate themselves and
outthink
support
us.
themselves. And what's interesting is I'm so fascinated with all this stuff, but I also want to bring an earthiness. It's like I want high tech to meet low tech. I want to bring like a holistic, high integrity, earthy connectedness to nature component to this, so that we stay grounded in all of it. And I think that's what happened over the last 15 years is we've kind of like a kite flying in the sky that wasn't tethered to the ground or something. It was just like we flew off because we could, and we did all this stuff. And now we're seeing the way that it's kind of unraveling really important and cherished aspects of our society. I mean, the
Hmm.
truth, for example. I mean, when you don't know
Yeah.
what's true, and you can't, and you question even the truth now, right?
Mhm.
I mean, we went through
Yeah.
a period of time like this historically when yellow journalism, was a thing, and when the printing press became really sort of, like all technology does, cheaper, and
Hmm.
people could print their own pamphlets and newsletters and things like that. It was sort of an
Yeah.
earlier version,
Early version of fake news.
of fake news and social media. But the
Yeah.
publishing industry and the broadcast industry and all of this infrastructure with gatekeepers and with fact checkers and with validation, formulas or whatever, came into place. And that kind of all went out the window with social media. And to your point with the FTC, I think we're starting to clue in. We kind of need to bring some of that back here in order to rein this in and make it useful, because actually this technology ceases to have any use when it's a complete chaotic free-for-all, I think.
Well, older people are starting to use it too, and they are the most vulnerable because they've already been through the rigmarole of understanding that people will take advantage of you if you pick up the phone, or or maybe you get a letter in the mail, but they haven't necessarily been taught all of the, ways in which people tried to trick them on the
Yeah.
internet. And my aunts are older and they're frequently saying, I've been hacked. And it's not really what's happened. What's happened is someone's created another identity that's identical to theirs and is trying to trick people, and they never would have thought that's what happened. They thought that someone had hacked their account and was using it on internet. So, it's like we still have this gap of, we've got people who are jumping on this technology and using it and not fully understanding the ways in which it's making them vulnerable. And I've seen this also in virtual reality where, I'll be interacting in the virtual world where there's not supposed to be little kids. And someone will come up to me and it's like, hi, my name's blah, blah, and I live in blah, blah, blah. And how are you? And it's like, holy crap, kid. You just should not have done that.
Yeah.
So I think, the more we are, first of all, it requires us to go into places we don't necessarily think we would go normally. Social media is not something that I do on a regular basis. I used to post a lot myself, but after I went through my own, all this existential stuff, I was like, you know what? I have to do it for a living, so I don't necessarily need to tell my family. I tell my friends and family personally because I have tried to rebuild those personal connections. Those are so important to me as we are getting older in life. And I know that I'm not going to be able to be on the internet all the time to tell them stuff. So I'm going to call them instead. So I've really tried to make that transition back to more of a, one-on-one with the close friends and family. Now my sister, she's in Iowa and I don't hardly ever get to talk to her. And so I rely on social media to see pictures of the kids and to stay in touch that way. And so sometimes it just requires me to go there if I need to, if I really value that.
I want to ask you a question about that in a second, but let me first ask this one. So September and Angie, so my oldest daughter, first of all, my youngest daughter could, for the most part, care less about social media, which is interesting. I mean, she's on TikTok, but she uses it mostly as an entertainment device. Like she just watches videos of cats and funny things and that kind of thing, right? And she's 15, but if you were going to give her the option of what to spend a lot of her time on, she'd rather go write a new song on the guitar or do she's a fine artist, drawing, painting, that kind of stuff. She'd rather do that. And what's interesting too is she's an introverted person. So, and I've heard people say for a long time that social media is great for introverts because you can get that socialization without having to go out. And I could see that. And yet my youngest is like introverted and really is not that addicted to it. My older daughter, who's 17, opposite story. I mean, you're sitting there with her and, in the room talking, and she'll just stop and strike a pose and take a snap for Snapchat, like out of nowhere, and just send it to someone. And it happens multiple times an hour, right? And so I said to her, I'm like, huh?
Is she using Be Real, that one where you have to do it at a certain time? No,
probably. She plays all the games, and she's been involved in the TikTok, fads and the dancing when it was that, but years ago, and it's always been something else. But here's the interesting thing. She also will say to me, I'm spending less and less time on social media. She says, I use it mostly just as a texting communication device. It's like, that's where we communicate a lot. And she's not as interested in what it was intended for. So my question to both of you is, with the teenagers in your life, have you noticed, is this generation the current generation that, Gen Z, I guess, are they using it less than millennials were? What have you seen in your own personal life too?
Well, at least for my kids, they get their own little text groups going. So they're on their own little, just using their phones, texting to each other in a group. And that's how they communicate back and forth. And if they do TikTok, they're just trying to get ideas or just waste
Right.
time, but they're not using it like social media. So I think they are going to not be using it like we do, you know.
Yeah.
And let's face it, I mean, the whole reason I jumped into social media was from a marketing perspective. I want to communicate. I want to communicate a certain thing or for my clients or whatever. And so I think the usage is different. And what technology offers now is a true private conversation between friends.
Right. What about you, September?
So my two children are 25 and 21, and then I have bonus children.
Okay.
And I can tell you that with my boys, they just were not interested.
Mm.
They had Snapchat, but they really used it as a messaging service with their friends, and that quickly wore off. But Daniel and Preston have always been incredibly laid back, even when they were toddlers. They're a lot like their mother. We just didn't get interested in that. They didn't find an interest in it. With the 11-year-old, she kind of uses it more for information. Like she's looking at, because she's in ballet, so she's looking at ballet dances and different ways of doing the thing, and craft ideas or funny little whatnots. But when she's here, like I do her hair when child has so much hair. And so it usually takes us about an hour and a half to get her hair done and straightening and all that stuff. She's normally not on social media. She's on Paramount watching a series that she's more interested in. And when she's on TikTok, it's more for killing time and a little bit of entertainment, but really she goes on there to search more. She uses it more like a search engine. Yeah.
So it seems to me that it's almost like they're using it now more as sort of version 2 of what the internet was when it first came out. It's just a more convenient, handy, and it's algorithmically driven at you. When the web, right? Remember when we used to call it that? When it first came out, we used to have to sit down and we'd have our browser, you had Excite or Yahoo or, even before Google and all that. And you'd have to type what it was like the magic oracle or the box that you would type into. What do I want to find, and then sometimes you could walk to the website faster than it could find it, but it would hum along, and now it knows you algorithmically, so it can just push the content at you. But it sounds like they're still using it more as sort of just a trends and things like that. I don't know if any of that is the issue. I think the issue is human beings being disconnected from themselves and others and relying on mediated communication exclusively. Not that it's a problem. And this goes to what you were saying, Angie, a few minutes ago, that you use social media now mostly just to stay in touch with friends and family and find out what they're doing, especially if they don't live nearby. Have you guys ever heard of or seen the show Extrapolations? It was on Apple TV last year. I think it was last year. Worth watching. So it's a whole 6 episodic series called Extrapolations. For those of you listening and watching, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching. And it kind of takes you through a sort of futurist history of the world in the age of climate change. And it kind of leaps in 10-year segments. So it's like every episode is another 10 years in the future. And you see some of the same characters kind of age and what they go through. But it weaves in all this technology as well. And there was this one episode where, the version of social media at that time, I think it was like 2060 or something like that was the year. Anyway, we had created a situation, and with Neuralink, and on some of the stuff that's going on, I don't see this being that far off. So you have the computers in your head now. So it's a chip in your head, and you just have to think, I want, to go back and find that picture or that video from, that trip that I took 5 years ago. And then you wear these contacts or whatever, and you can see it in front of you, like you're reliving it kind of thing. And so, and here's the thing, right? Science fiction's always future fact. So there's that.
Mhm.
But then they charge you for storage of your memories. And this one guy, so these are your memories now, right? And the connection between your brain and the servers is complete. And so this guy can't afford to keep paying the monthly because he's lost job and everything. And so like, oh, well, we're sorry. We're just going to have to. So he has to go make room in the amount of storage that he has of his memories. And he has to like let the memory of his mom go, or he
Wow.
has to let the memory of his friends go, or the memory of whatever, like to create storage space because he doesn't have enough storage
Yeah,
anymore.
freaky.
Wild stuff.
That's like the dystopian nightmare, and where you've just gone too far with the tech, and that you're too far to go back.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I worry about with biology tech, and I know, like, oh, I don't. Somebody was talking about this as far as like a CPAP machine that you could put in your chest, and I was like, I wouldn't like that because I'm not going to need a CPAP machine forever. I just, and that seems so permanent and
Yeah.
intrusive
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
some of the other options, and it just, I know that people are talking about that, but I also know that there has been experiments where they have had computers hooked up to people's brains and had them
Yeah.
think, a thought, and the brain, or the computer, like, completely recreated the thought,
Mm-hmm.
on the monitor. And, that's close to like being able to see your dreams, which was
Yeah.
always a tech that I thought would be really interesting, is to
That would
say,
be
hey, I want to
interesting.
play my dreams back. I don't remember what I dreamed.
That would be interesting. Yeah. See, that's the thing. There's like cool aspects of it, but then there's what we know,
It's cool.
you know, it's like that saying, I'm probably going to botch it, but it's like, we have, 21st century technology and Bronze Age emotions, or Bronze Age, values or whatever. Right. And
Yeah.
so, well, this is all, brave new world, as Aldous Huxley said. I mean, we're definitely living that. So let's lead us as we kind of wrap up here, Angie, with one final thought. We know technology is not going anywhere. We know it's just going to continue to exponentially transform the world, transform the way we live, get more and more sophisticated, more and more intelligent. I mean, it kind of leads me to the importance of what we're doing with TMIC here in terms of the work around helping people reconnect to themselves from an authentic place, have an intention from which to come from, so that they can use these technologies with full awareness, as you were saying, full discernment. And so simultaneously, I feel like in the Star Wars vernacular, we're the rebels that are fighting, the dark side, the evil empire, because it's there, right? The evil empire, the dark side of the force, right, is using this technology for malevolent purposes. But if we can actually help humans connect to their authentic, pure, the goodness in themselves, and to come from that place, then the technology can be used to massively expand that message and have a wider impact. And I think I'm getting, and I'm sensing, and I want you to kind of leave us with your thought on this, but I'm sensing that's kind of your take on it. It's like, look, people are going to use it for nefarious purposes, but we need the same amount, if not more, people to use it for purposes that advance humanity. So I can't just check out of the game, because then the dark side wins.
Everything runs amok if you're not, the light worker that's standing in its way. And one of the jokes I like to say is, social media could lead to enlightenment if you could learn to discern reality in your social media feed. Then you should be
Mm,
able to discern reality in real life. And it's just a mirror of, even your thought stream
yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes in a creepy way. I
Interesting.
still see the algorithm at work. I know that prior to yesterday, I had never seen a Jack Canfield ad in my news feed. But because I thought to ask, is there a relationship between Jack Canfield and Deepak Chopra on AI? All of a sudden I'm seeing Jack Canfield,
Wow.
ads. And I think, it's still prolific, it's cookies, and we can tailor it, and it's more to September's point about TikTok. Like, I know if I interact with a video that's about this, I'm going to see more of these videos. You see that it's a tangible change in your newsfeed. Where
Mm.
on Facebook and Instagram, you have to curate your newsfeed. You have to hide things that you don't like until you stop seeing them. And, you have to interact with things that you do like. So you have to train it for a little bit longer time. And I think
Yeah.
that's where, they could use some serious improvement, honestly. But
Yeah.
if you start a brand new Instagram account and you go like food videos, for example, they will start suggesting foodies for you to
Mm.
follow. So they try
Yeah.
to get there. But, we have to understand that everything we're seeing is what the computer wanted us to see.
Yeah.
And it's probably the same thing in real life, and that could lead to enlightenment.
That's interesting. So in a way, you're looking at social media as a mirror of our own tastes and proclivities and interests and things. And so it kind of is showing you to a certain extent who you are.
I would say
Yeah.
it's a more concentrated laser focus of a reflection of yourself. Like, you really
Mm.
get to see in detail who you are as a reflection, like what you're interested in, what the conversation that you're interested in, what you're not interested in. And yeah.
Or is it you, or is it just that part of you when you want to escape life that it's reflecting back at you, the escapist part of you?
I think it
could
depends
be.
on how well you know yourself and how well you are connected to your values, like we
Yeah.
were talking about recently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fascinating conversation. Wanted to thank everybody who's watching and listening today. Thank you so much, Angie, for joining us today and for having it. I'm sure we'll have you back and talk about other things. And of course, people are going to see you in the work that we do with TMIC anyway. So, and September, as always, thank you so much. And again, for anyone listening and watching, if you want to get connected into what we're talking about doing at TMIC, go to tmicglobal.com or themostimportantconversations.com, where you can find more information about what we're doing, and on social media, where you'll find Angie and all the work that she's doing behind the scenes to start to get our message out there. We hope to be a force for transformation and for good in the world. And we're going to be using social media to help get that message out there. So definitely has its utility. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And until next time, when we see you again on another episode of The Most Important Conversations, thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
That concludes this episode of The Most Important Conversations. This in-depth conversation could set you on the path to self-improvement, which is essential if you want to be an effective leader and take meaningful action in your life. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these stimulating discussions, you can find them at TMICglobal.com. Remember, the world is at a crossroads right now. You can't afford to waste this opportunity to take charge of your life, build meaningful relationships with others, and co-create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.